Hello and welcome to this lesson. In this lesson, we are looking at construction of angles. Angles are one of the things which are cardinal and very crucial to geometric constructions. We look at some standard angles which we can construct using our compass and our ruler only. So these are the angles. We have 60 degrees, 30 degrees, 120 degrees, 90 degrees, 45 degrees, 22.5 degrees. We have 150 degrees, and we also have 105 degrees. Once you know how to construct all these angles, it means that any shape that you are given to construct, being it a triangle, a rectangle, a square, or a parallelogram, you should be able to construct it with ease. So let's start from the basic. Here we'll be using a line. The line will be AB, and the length of the line will be 5 centimeters. So I'll draw my straight line like this. As I said, the length of the line I'll be using will be 5 centimeters. So I'll measure my 5 centimeters. Now I'll stand at one end and I'll make an arc. Stand on the arc and make another arc here. The length is 5 centimeters. Now here is A, here is B. So I take my compass and I open to a reasonable radius like this, probably 2 centimeters. You stand at A. Since I want the angle to be at A, then I'll make a semicircle like this. Now you don't change the opening. You don't open or close it again. You keep it like that. Then you stand at here, this side. You stand at this side. Let me name that place to be, let's say here is C and here is D. So you stand at D and then you make an arc to cross the semicircle. Let's say the intersection of the arc and then the semicircle is E. Now you take your ruler and then you draw a straight line from A to pass through E. So this angle here is 60 degrees. You can use your protractor to confirm if it's actually 60 degrees. So yes, it's on a 60 degrees mark exactly. Now let's say you're asked to construct 30 degrees. 30 degrees will be constructed like this. So you start with your straight line. You measure the required length. You stand at one end, you make an arc. You stand on that arc and you make another arc. Now let's say this is A and this is B. We want to construct 30 degrees. So you open to a reasonable radius, then you make a semicircle to touch the line AB. With the same radius, you stand here and then you make the arc. This arc is 60 degrees, but we are asked to construct 30 degrees, which means I have to divide this 60 degrees. So if I call here C and I'll call here D and I'll call here E, then I have to divide the angle between D and E. So I'll stand at D, then I'll open to a reasonable radius. I'll make an arc with the same length. I'll stand at E and I'll make an arc to cross the first one like this. Let me call that intersection F. So my 30 degrees will be a line from A passing through F. So from A passing through F like this. This angle here is 30 degrees. Now let's say I'm asked to construct 15 degrees. I didn't add that one. 15 degrees. 15 degrees will be a bisection of 30 degrees. So you take your compass. Let me call you a G. You take your compass and you bisect the 30 degrees. So D and G. I'll stand at D, then I'll make an arc. With the same radius, I'll stand at G and I make an arc, which means I've bisected the angle 30 degrees. And I'll draw a line from A. Let's say this place is H. I'll draw my straight line from A to pass through H like this. Now I divided this 30 degrees into 2, which means that this one is 15 degrees. So we've done 60 degrees, we've done 30 degrees, and we've done 15 degrees. Let's say you're asked to construct 120 degrees. You start with your line. So you draw your line like this. You open to the required length, the length that they will give you, open to it. You stand at one end, then you make an arc. And you stand on the arc you've just made, then you make another arc. You name your line segment. So let's say here is A, here is B, and my length was 5 centimeters. I'm constructing 120 degrees at A. So I'll take my compass like this. I'll open to a reasonable radius like 2 centimeters. Then I'll stand at A. So I stand at A and I make an arc like this. Now stand at, let me name here to be C. So stand at C and you make an arc. And you stand on that arc and you make another arc like this. Let me call here D and let me call here E. Now this side is 60 degrees, this is also 60 degrees, and this side is also 60 degrees. This means that 60 plus 60 will give me 120. So my 120 degrees will be, I'll draw a line from A to pass through E like this. So I'll draw a straight line like this. This angle here is 120 degrees. You can confirm with your protractor. Let me do the same thing at B. You can also be asked to construct an angle of 120 degrees at B. So you open to a reasonable radius, you stand at B, then you make a semicircle. So this semicircle like this. Now let me say this place is F and here is G. With the same opening, I don't close it, I don't change it, I keep it like that. And then I'll stand at F, then I'll make my first arc, that's 60 degrees. Then I'll go and stand at the arc I just constructed and I'll make another arc like this, and that will be my 120 degrees. So let's say here is H and here is I. So my 120 degrees will be, I'll draw the line from B to pass through I. If I say I, it means where the arc intersected the semicircle. I'll draw my line like this. Now from this side to this side is 120 degrees. Here is 60 degrees and here is 60 degrees. So 60 plus 60 will give me 120 degrees. Now we are done with the 120 degrees. Let's construct 90 degrees, 45 and 22.5 degrees. So I'll start with my straight line. Which is this. I'll measure the required length, let's say 5 centimeters. I'll stand at one end and I'll make an arc. I'll stand on that arc and make another arc. Then I will name my line segment. My line segment, let's say A, and let's say this is B. Maybe this is 7 centimeters and I want to construct 90 degrees at A. So I will open to a reasonable radius like 2 centimeters. Then I will make an arc, a semicircle like this. Now in this method or this approach of constructing 90 degrees, I will make sure that my compass will be here. So if this line or if the semicircle didn't cross this line, you extend it. You extend it by placing the ruler on the line such that the ruler will lie on the line AB, not something like this, but that it will be straight on the line. Then you extend the line so that it can cross. If not, you will make a mistake with our construction. Alright, so let's say here is C and here is D. Now what I do is that this angle on a straight line is 180 and I need 90 degrees. So I will have to divide the angle C to D. So I'll open to a reasonable radius like this. Then I'll stand at C and I'll make an arc. Here is the arc. Now I'm going to stand at D to make an arc to cross the first one like this. Let me say the intersection of the arc, the two arcs here, is E. So my 90 degrees will be a line from A to E. I'll take my ruler like this and I'll draw my straight line from A to E like this. Now here is 90 degrees and this side too is 90 degrees. You can also construct the 90 degrees using this approach. Let's practice that approach at B. So you take your compass and you open to a reasonable radius about 2 centimeters. Then you stand at B. You make your semicircle like this. Let me call here F. Let me call here T. So with the same radius, with the same opening, you stand at G. You stand at G, then you make an arc. Then you can decide to stand on this arc and make another arc, or you stand at G, then you make an arc. It's all the same thing. Now if I want my 90 degrees to be here, here is 60 and here is 60. That means that I have to add 30 degrees to this 60 degrees. Now here is 60 degrees, which means I have to divide this. So I'll open to a reasonable radius. I'll stand at, let's say here is H and here is I. I'll stand at H, open to a reasonable radius, then I make an arc. And I'll stand at I, then I'll strike an arc. Let me call the intersection of the arc J. So I'll draw a line from B to pass through J like this. And this should be 90 degrees. This should also be 90 degrees. If you are asked to construct 45 degrees, you have to first construct 90 degrees. So let's look at that. So now let's construct 45 degrees. 45 degrees. So as usual, I draw my straight line like this. I draw my straight line like this. Then I measure the required length. Let's say 6 centimeters. So you measure the required length. So I stand at this place and I make the arc. I stand on the arc. Then I make another arc like this. Now, let me name this to be A. Let me name here to be B. And then let me write the length. This is, let's say, 7 centimeters. Now, I'm constructing my angle at A. I'm constructing the 45 degrees at A. What do? I open to a reasonable radius like 2 centimeters. I stand at A, then I make an arc like this. I'll make an arc. Before I construct 45 degrees, I need 90 degrees. So I'll have to divide this angle. Let me call this place to be C and here to be D. So I open to a reasonable radius. I'll stand at C. I'll make an arc here and I'll stand at D and make an arc to cross the first arc like this. Now because I don't need the 90 degrees, I'll use broken lines. So let me call the intersection A, B, C, D. Let's here be E. So I'll draw my broken line from A to E with broken lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now make sure the broken line, one of them crosses this semicircle here. And then you continue until you get to the very last one like this. Now what do I do? From, let me say here is F. This place is F. The angle from D to F is 90 degrees, but I need 45 degrees, which means I have to bisect my angle, which is the 90 degrees. So I'll open to a reasonable radius. I'll stand at D, then I'll make an arc like this. Then I'll go and stand at F, and I'll make an arc to cross the first one like this. The last thing I do is that I will draw a line to pass through A. Let me say here is J. It will pass through A from A passing through D, then I will extend it. So here is 45 degrees. Now let's say you're asked to construct the 22.5 degrees, which means that you simply have to bisect the 45 degrees. When you divide 45 degrees into 2, you will get 22.5. So how do you bisect? You will stand at, here is D, let me call this H. So after going through the same process, you will stand at D. I'm bisecting the 45 degrees. So I'll stand at D, I'll open a reasonable radius, so I make an arc. Then I'll go and stand at H, and I'll make an arc to cross the first one, like this. Now the only thing I have to do is to join from A. Let me call this intersection I. So I draw a straight line from A to pass through I, like this. This angle here, let me call here J. The angle from D to J is 22.5 degrees. So if you want to construct the angle, it is essential for you to be able to know how to divide angles, because when you know how to divide angles, most angles that you'll be constructing will be by bisecting or dividing angles. Now we are almost done. Let's do 150 and then 105 degrees. So I draw my straight line. I'll measure the required length. I'll name my line segment. Let's see, here is A. Let's see, here is B, like this, and I write the length. That is 6 centimeters. I'm constructing 150 degrees, so I have to open to a reasonable radius, like 2 centimeters. Then I'll make an arc, which is a semicircle, like this. Let me name here to be C, and let me name here to be D. Then with the same radius, I'll stand at D. And I'll make an arc to cross the semicircle. And I can decide to stand on the arc and make a semicircle, or stand at C to make the semicircle. It will all be the same thing. Now what do you do? Let's say here is E and here is F. Now here is 60, here is 60. If I need 150, I have to add 30 to the 120, and here is also 60. So I have to divide this angle from C to F. So I'll open to a reasonable radius. I'll stand at C, then I'll make an arc. I'll stand at F, and I'll also make an arc, which means I've divided this 60 degrees, which is from C to F, into 30 degrees. Now what do? You will now draw a line from A. Let me call this intersection thing. You will draw a line to pass through A and thing, like this. So this angle here is 150 degrees. Now let me construct the 105 degrees at B. So I make a semicircle like this. Then with the same radius, I'll do my 60, stand on that radius, and I'll do my next one, which is the 120 mark. Let me call here H, and let me call here I. Now to construct the 105 degrees, I'll need 90 degrees. I'll open to a reasonable radius. I'll stand at H, then I'll make an arc, stand at I, and I'll strike an arc like this. I do not need that, so I'll use broken lines to draw this. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now this is 90 degrees, but to get my 105 degrees, it has to be 90 plus 15 degrees. From here, from this line, let me name here, let's say here is J. From J to I is 30 degrees. So it means I have to divide the angle here to get my 15 degrees. So I'll stand at J and I'll make an arc. I'll go and stand at I and I'll make an arc to cross the first one. I think the first one is not long enough, so I'll come back and then I'll extend that arc like this. Let me call that K. So I'll draw my line from B to pass through K like this. So from here to here is 105 degrees. Now there is one angle that we didn't add, which is 135 degrees. So I'll start with a straight line. I'll measure the required length like this. So this, stand here, this. Let's say here is B, here is A, and here is B. The length is 5 centimeters. I'll open to a reasonable radius and make an arc here, a semicircle. I'll need 90 degrees, so I'll stand at this place, make an arc. I'll stand here and then I'll make an arc like this. Let me call the intersection of the two arcs C. So I'll use broken lines because I was not asked to construct 90 degrees. So I have this. Now I want my 135 degrees to start from this side. Here is 90. To get 135, I have to add 45 degrees. So I'll bisect this. This side is 90 degrees and the other side is 90 degrees. So I'll bisect the 90 degrees to get 45 degrees and I'll add it to the 90 degrees I already have here. So as usual, I'll stand here and I'll make an arc. Go and stand here. This is the 90 degrees mark. Then I'll make an arc. Then I'll make an arc like this. So I just have to draw a line from A to pass through the intersection of the new arcs that I've just made. So from here to the side. So from this to this is 135 degrees. These are all the essential angles you need to know how to construct. You have to practice it over and over again, get used to it, and then you'll be able to construct any geometric shape that you are asked. Thanks for watching, and then I'll see you in the next video.